All right. Let's see what we got going here. Folks, I'm just going to tell a little story here from long, long ago. Just under 50 years ago. About 40, 45, 46 years ago. I was in a band out of Tucson, Arizona. We played local gigs in Tucson. We played dances and a few clubs, bars, other kinds of gigs, state fairs, things of that kind. But we also had a van we would pile all our shit into, and we'd hit the road from time to time. We had an agent in Los Angeles. I believe his name was Ken Green. Old Ken Green. He would book us into various venues around the western United States. Could be anything from anywhere from Los Angeles up to Seattle, all up and down California, Salt Lake City, Ogden, Utah, Colorado. He sent us across New Mexico, a couple places in New Mexico. We moved around quite a bit. Just the kind of gigs you would expect a young bluegrass style band to be playing. Some of them were clubs, other kinds of venues, one kind or another, including big outdoor bluegrass festivals. So anyway, having said all of that, one of those summers where we were on the road in the West, our travels took us near Aspen, Colorado, where there was every summer was a huge classical music festival. And it was very, very popular, very prestigious. They would have concerts and performances of symphonic pieces, soloist works, violin concerti, and many very, very hot and talented classical players on their respective instruments, be it a violin or clarinet or even viola or some other instrument. It was quite a scene up there, man. Aspen was like the coolest of the cool. If you could make it to Aspen, you were fucking cool, man. Well, we had a couple of buddies of ours that we already knew were going to be hanging in Aspen all summer, pursuing some other courses in some of the new age kind of programs that were going on in Aspen at the same time. For example, one of our buddies happened to be a bluegrass bass fiddle player, Ed Davenport. Ed was taking a course in how to make miso and how to not only make it but care for it, nurture it, store it, package it, etc. Miso, made from soybeans, a very ancient traditional type of food product, which I believe originated in Japan. But there was a miso master teaching a course all about miso in Aspen, Colorado at that time. And our buddy was taking the course, and he was going to be living there taking not only that course, but a few others, as I recall. We're talking real new age stuff here, back in the groovy days of the 1970s. So anyway, we knew he was going to be there, but we kind of like detoured ourselves in such a way that we could spend, like a day or two in the Aspen, Colorado area, hanging out. Well, that day or two actually turned into about a week or two, possibly a couple weeks, as I recall. Long enough. Now we're talking about 1979 here, folks. 1979, 1980. We were in Aspen long enough for me personally to have become quite enamored of the charms of a young lady who was in Aspen for the Classical Music Festival. I don't remember. I think she might have been a pianist, as I recall. I think she played piano. But she was studying in Aspen, and she had rented a little apartment there. And somehow, I don't even remember how I met her, but we hit it off just great, and I was quite attracted to this young lady. I ended up, while the rest of the band went off and everybody fended for themselves, I went off with this young lady and basically lived with her in her apartment. Something of a squatter I was, I suppose one might say. I lived with her for, oh my gosh, almost a couple weeks. Yeah. And needless to say, folks, when you're about 26 years old and you hook up with a member of the opposite sex, and you both find one another quite attractive and charming, one thing leads to another, as they say. And it was a marvelous time for me, and it was for her too. We had serious fun together. I found her to be quite entertaining and quite delicious in her feminine charms. But one of those days that we were in Aspen, we decided to. There was a public plaza area where they had that was a permanent space where there were, I don't know, I want to say about 2 or 3 parallel streets, a couple of blocks of 2 or 3 parallel streets, where they closed off the streets at the end and put in big giant flower pots and some landscaping and gardening and stuff. And so it created this walking space up and down these several blocks. And all of the buildings there had fine restaurants, groovy shops of one kind or another, and quite excellent restaurants. Some of them were actually quite upscale. It was a very, very groovy hangout space right in the center of Aspen. And it was well frequented by shoppers and people, just, tourists and people hanging out. And we decided to play on the street. In those days, you didn't even need a permit of any kind to play on the street. We just simply, one day, there were about 6 or 7 of us. We just simply set up in front of this building and took out our instruments and also got ourselves all situated and started playing our bluegrass stuff that we used to be quite famous for all over the West. We played some traditional, burning hot bluegrass music, but we also played some norteña music, from northern Mexico, Sonora to be exact. and some other popular songs from further down in Mexico. Some of the old chestnuts that all Mexicans would recognize, and like Jalisco, 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 da 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 da, that kind of stuff. Rancho Grande, ya no Rancho Grande, da 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 da. Some of those old chestnuts, we would play those too, because they had such wide recognition and wide appeal to any of our Mexican or Hispanic patrons. But we also played gobs and gobs of bluegrass and even some just old time fiddle tunes, and bluegrass fiddle tunes. And we'd all just take hot solos on all of these pieces. And that was kind of like our show, you know what I'm saying? That's what we were about. And on these Mexican songs, we would sing 3-part harmonies in Spanish. And we had great harmony vocals on these songs too. And that always blew everybody away. It didn't take more than a couple or 3 songs from our repertoire before we would draw a huge crowd. And on that particular day, we did draw a huge crowd. Oh, it must have been, I would say safely 100 people all massed all around us in this big giant mass of people closing in on us and watching our show. And after every song, wild applause. And we, of course, we put a big guitar case out front. And people were just they couldn't throw their $5 bills and $20 bills in that case fast enough, man. We made gobs of money that day. So we did our show to great local acclaim, I might add, and we finished up, and we're all packing up, and of course my young lady friend, who I had become involved with that week, had been just sitting right out front on a bench watching our whole show, and she was just enthralled. She thought it was great. She'd never seen anything quite like it. And I had just packed my fiddle up, and I was just everything is sort of like kind of like scatterbrained. And all of a sudden this old man, I'd put him in his maybe deep into his 70s, possibly in his 80s, I want to say. Big bushy gray sideburns, bushy gray, hair all back, bushy gray hair, kind of like Beethoven, like Ludwig van Beethoven. He walked right up to me, and I kind of leaned forward, and he was leaning over, and I could smell liquor on his breath big time, like scotch, hard liquor. He was shit-faced, red-eyed, drunk on his ass. Absolutely drunk on his ass. But he had a very distinguished look about him. Fine suit, tie, crisp, distinguished, with his whole visage reeked of a very intelligent man who was likely, way more than likely, involved with the classical music festival in one form or another, although that would have been pure speculation on my part. So, however, he leans up to me and he goes, "You have the loosest wrist in Aspen." And then he just kind of, leaned back, and he turned and he just walked away. And of course, as he leaned back, after saying that, I knew what he meant. Being a fiddler as I was, amongst a whole town full of classical violinists. I knew what he was talking about. And then he just walked away. And I thought that was very interesting. But I didn't have a single clue as to who he was. Not a clue. And then my new girlfriend, who I'd been hanging with, walked right up to me, and she said, "Wow, man, do you know who that was?" No, you know what? I don't have any idea who that was. Who was it? She said that was Walter Trampler. Walter Trampler. Walter Trampler. Trampler. Walter Trampler, the famous violist, classical violist, not violinist, violist. In other words, somebody who plays the viola. Of course, the viola being the second in the family in the violin family, having the violin up here, then the viola, then the cello, and then the bass fiddle, comprising the meat and potatoes of the violin family of instruments. I go, wow, Walter Trampler, yeah, and let's see, I've heard of him. Yeah, you may not have heard of him, but he's one of the most famous classical musicians in the whole damn country, if not the world. Had played in string quartets and trios and played viola concertos with major symphony orchestras. He taught the instrument. He had done extensive recording over his lifetime, toured the entire world. He was quite famous, actually, quite famous. And he had come up to me and said, "You've got the loosest wrist in Aspen." All right, well, okay. What does that even mean? I'll show you what it means. You know, I can't really express the bow the way I once was able to. For example, back during the historical time of this story that I'm telling, which would have been in the late 70s. But be it old time bluegrass music, or even classical music, there's a certain amount of flexibility that needs to be at your disposal in the wrist. The wrist cannot stay locked. The wrist must have some give, and it must be able to ebb and flow and twist and bend to some extent, depending upon the passage that is being played and the type of attack that is required out of the player. And now my use of the bow has changed quite radically over the years since those days. And but there was a time when my use of the bow was quite fluid. I was so in practice, and I did so much playing that I had a certain kind of a style that where my wrist would have a lot of fluidity to it, as I would bow the fiddle. Not so much anymore because I'm an old man now, and kind of on my way out of this whole game of fiddle playing, as we might say. But strangely enough, old Mr. Trampler recognized that I actually had kind of a nice look to the way I would use the bow in the kind of music I was playing, and he came up and wanted to tell me about it, wanted to comment on it, which is exactly what he did. You have the loosest wrist in Aspen. Oh, shit. But you know what? What is it John Steinbeck said? All the plans of mice and men go oft astray. And I think any of us who have lived enough years certainly understand the meaning of that little phrase. And that's kind of exactly what happened towards the end of that week I was in Aspen. The beautiful young woman that I'd been hanging out with all week, who was the one that came up to me and said, "Do you know who that was that just talked to you?" Her name was Erica. Erica. A lovely name indeed. But imagine this scenario. My girlfriend in Tucson, and we were sort of on the skids anyway. We hadn't been doing very well with our relationship. Imagine my fucking surprise when she had not promised to come to Aspen from Tucson. I think she may have threatened to do so, but if I remember right, there was no guarantee. She did not give me a guarantee that she was going to come up to Aspen. I don't recall that she did. So imagine my surprise when, not minutes, and I mean not even fucking minutes, after Walter Trampler came up and said what he said to me, and then he disappeared. Not minutes after that, I suddenly saw my Tucson girlfriend out in the crowd. Her name was Sarah. Suddenly I caught a glimpse of Sarah out there. And so it's like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. Oh man. This is just exactly how it was going down, man. So now I had Sarah there in my face, and my girlfriend from, the Aspen girlfriend, Erica, also being there, with whom I was having a great time. And suddenly Sarah shows up from Tucson. So I'm talking to Sarah there, and Erica sees me talking to Sarah, and she just had an intuition about it. She knew it wasn't just some random girl that walked up that I was talking to. She had a sixth sense about it. She knew it was probably some other girlfriend that I had, or who knows how she was able to come to that kind of conclusion, but she did, and she got extremely upset, so upset. If I remember right, I had to tell Erica um, that I wasn't going to be able to hang out with her anymore. It was all very, very sad. Everything just came crashing down. I felt like complete shit. Uh, uh, I really, truly did. But feeling like complete shit didn't actually last all that long, because we took the $100 or so that we had made from panhandling on the street there. We emptied out the guitar case of all the money, and we made about $100. Now back in 1979 or 1980, $100 was actually a nice little chunk of change, man. Nice chunk of change. And we all decided to go have dinner at a fine restaurant nearby. We picked a place that other people knew of. So we all headed over there. There were about, oh man, there were like 6 or 7 of us, if not like 8 of us, all around a big round table. We got seated, and we had ourselves a fine dinner, a very fine dinner. And that $100 more than covered the cost of the whole meal for all of us. And we had a great time. We ate well, drank well, had fun hanging out together. And a lot of people around the restaurant had actually just been out there on the sidewalk watching our show. And so they were scoping on us and thinking, how cool we were to be in the same, suddenly show up in the same restaurant where they were having their dinner, And we were just a bunch of ragtag street musicians that had just finished up entertaining them all. Oh, man, you can't make this shit up, folks. You can't make it up. Why would you even try? Why would you even try? I remember on that same trip. See, was it the same trip? Well, it must have been on that same trip. But then again, it might not have been. I was hiking up in and around Maroon Bells, Colorado. A gorgeous collection of very intense mountains. With fantastic aspen forests around the base of the mountains, mixed in with groves of huge, vast groves of pine trees, and then you'd have big, giant stands of aspen. We were hiking way up high, up at the top of the snow, above tree line, and up in some. I remember collecting some aspen flowers. I stand corrected. Alpine flowers. Up on the alpine meadows, there'd be these little tiny species of flowers, little shrubs, growing up at in the alpine meadows above timberline. And I had clipped out a bunch of those, and I put them. I had a card in my backpack, like a little postcard, or a card that actually not a postcard, but one that would open up and stick it in an envelope. And I put several of these little flowers inside the card, and I wrote a love note to my girlfriend Sarah down in Tucson. And I actually threw these flowers in with it, told her how much I loved her and how much I missed her, and sent that down to her, put it in the mail, and sent it off, only to later find out that she was actually, at the very exact time, on the very same week or days that I was hiking around the mountains, dreaming of her and wanting to see her again, wanting to be back with her. She was actually in Tucson fucking one of my friends and having an affair with him. And actually, as I think back, I think she actually had an affair with a couple of different guys during the time that I was gone in Colorado. So the best laid plans of mice and men go off to stray, my friends. Go off to stray. Needless to say, once I finally did get back to Tucson, the Mark and Sarah show came to a grinding halt, and it was over. It was over. And I never looked back. I've had countless occasions to contact her in the intervening years. We're talking 50 years now, folks. I've never made any attempt to contact her back. Not after how it all ended. Nope, I didn't have any interest in saying anything to her. She had made me into a chump. I was her chump, and I was not going to be her chump ever again. And of course, nowadays, none of that matters. Nothing matters. Nothing matters, folks. We're all going to die horrible deaths here at the hands of the elites who are destroying the world as we speak, and destroying humankind, I might add, in several different shocking ways. Not the least of which through geoengineering and atmospheric spraying of poisonous, highly deadly, toxic nanoparticulates of heavy metals, barium, strontium, aluminum, coal fly ash, several other key substances which are highly toxic to the environment, are being sprayed on us and over us on a daily basis across the entire world. And if you haven't noticed it lately, or if you have chosen to suck up to the bald-faced lie that all of these lines in the skies we see coming out of the jet airplanes is just harmless water vapor, if you've bought into that lie, you're just a fucking dumbass, and I really, quite frankly, don't give a shit what happens to you, or whether you even come visit my site ever again. You're a dumbass. You're a total dumbass. These are not water vapor dispersers. These are toxic aerosols of nanoparticulate heavy metals and other substances as well. Deadly toxic to the human species, to the environment. Aluminum, strontium, and barium all getting, the nanoparticles are so small, so itty bitty tiny and small, that they disseminate themselves throughout the entire environmental chain, ecological chain. Every inch of the earth is now degraded and polluted by these substances, which they've been spraying for nonstop for somewhere between 30 and 50 years, but more heavily so over the last about 20 to 30 years. And unfortunately, soil and water, snow and ice testing, which has been occurring all over the entire planet, clear physical evidence of all of this spraying settling down onto the ground has been identified in environmental tests which have been taken from locations all over the world. So if you think it's not happening, you're just as dumb as a bag of hammers. because it is happening, and it is causing environmental destruction, which has also been documented in several different ways. We are starting to see the evidence of ecological breakdown at a pretty deep level. Now, I know that's a pretty dark place to go after this wonderful story I just told, but you know what? I'm not I'm not going to lose my shit over some woman anymore. I'm not going, as far as heartbreak and disillusionment is concerned. I've got much better fish to fry. I would rather help to raise public awareness about the harms of geoengineering and atmospheric spraying than worry about some girlfriend or potential girlfriend or some such scenario. It's just not where my head is at anymore, folks. It's not where it's at. Now, I'm still fucking human. I will happily engage in a little bit of fun. I'll laugh at some jokes, tell a few jokes. I'll drink a glass of wine or two and hang with you and hang in there with the best of them and try to make a good time of it all, at least for a period of time. But the darkness and the degree to which the harm is currently underway and the extent to which I actually know and understand how it is happening, who's behind it, and what they're trying to accomplish and so forth. To the extent that I understand all of that, it's very difficult for me to just, maintain a happy-go-lucky, sunny side of life kind of attitude. I do my best to have a little bit of fun with a few friends here and there, and try not to collapse into complete and total darkness. I try to keep things balanced between the light and the dark, if such a thing is even possible. But I try. Having said all of that, that was one fun summer up there in Colorado, in Aspen. That was fun, man. It's hard to think that once upon a time, some of the darkness and the horrors of what's happening in our present world, such as the atmospheric spraying, the poisoning of a good percentage of mankind through the COVID vaccines. What a horrific campaign of diabolical evil that turned out to be. Here again, just like the chemtrail thing. If you do not agree with what I'm saying, if you don't agree with that characterization of the entire COVID pandemic basically being just a big fucking lie and an attempt to coerce billions of people into getting a deadly vaccine, which is filled with a variety of extremely harmful substances. If you think that characterization is bullshit, is all conspiracy theory, well then I suggest you turn right around, grab that mouse, and scroll right past this video, and scroll right past my channel, because my channel is not intended for people like you who are not willing to look at the facts and look at the clear, obvious physical evidence that something very terrible and deadly is occurring to us. I suggest you just move along because I'm not the channel for you. All right. Seems like I'm just talking around in circles. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to say goodbye. And I'll do that first by removing my hat. And even for those of you who don't comport with some of my views about some of these topics, I still wish you all the best at an even deeper level. Down, up. At an even deeper level, I wish you all the best. I wish you good health and happiness in this world. And as we say sometimes, namaste.